In a recent speech at Vanderbilt University's Global Free Speech Summit in Nashville, Salman Rushdie himself said that it would be more difficult to publish the Satanic Verses in today's climate than in that of 1988. Is he not right? It would be hard to imagine a prominent author of whatever background would have the temerity to use the Holy Writ of Islam for literary and satirical purposes, as Rushdie did in the Satanic Verses. It is barely imaginable to find a writer who would think of writing such a thing, let alone it being published. It's not that there is a law that says that it is, so to speak, haram to write such a thing, but it's virtually a fact that you won't get published by one of the big publishing houses that gatekeep the literary scene if you do. And it's the same case for other very contentious issues. Could you imagine a prominent author writing a story about a transgender person who transitioned but then detransitioned? It's not that it could be the best book ever written. It could have the best mastery of the English language. It doesn't even matter what the reasoning is for the so-called detransition, but you will not find that story ever written because there is just a silent, taboo that you just don't write that sort of thing if you want to get published by a big mainstream publishing house. But I want to emphasize something a little bit different, that of authorial freedom, that is the freedom of the writer. Because as someone who is a writer, though on non-fiction than fiction, being a writer isn't a vocation or a job or a career or a hobby, but it's what I am. And in that sense that it really matters to me that, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is me. That is what I am. And thus, it's an inevitable concomitant of literature that there will be books that upset or offend certain readers. It would be surprising if that were otherwise the case. The world is an upsetting place in many regards, so writers will inevitably reflect that in their work. That is, if literature wishes to claim to reflect the world that we live in. T.S. Eliot once said that humanity can't bear much of reality. He is, in a sense, vindicated. We don't often want to be reminded of the harsh truths of existence or history, or be exposed to perspectives and ways of seeing the world that discomfort us. Novels that frankly portray racism and oppression, like Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, have been on the ends of efforts of surreptitious censorship to, if you will, circumcise the language of it to make it more acceptable for current day readers. But this is a travesty because part of the power of that book is precisely the fact that it does discomfort us, that it exposes us to that reality that slavery and racialized slavery was a thing, and it is part of our history, whether we like it or not. And thus, the limits of authorial freedom today is often based on identity and perspective, that of standpoint epistemology. This is why some of the defense of Rushdie at the time was a little bit hypocritical. It was that, well, it's okay for Rushdie to write the Satanic Verses because he comes from a Muslim background and that's his culture. But what if Rushdie was a non-Muslim and was on the end of that fatwa? I very much doubt that the defense that he got at the time would be as strong as it was from those that did defend him at the time. But this emphasis on identity goes against the spirit of being a writer. The writer, at least of fiction, is almost by definition an outsider who inhabits the lives and experiences of others, those who are very much not like him or herself. This is valuable as an outsider can see things as that an insider doesn't. This is the basis of imagination, of what makes fiction worth reading, that through inhabiting these different characters, we can arrive at a more universal conversation of what it means to be human. We have become so caught up with identity, not content. A writer, at least a good and perceptive one at least, should be able to momentarily rise above the boundaries of their own identity and history and experience and write with freedom about the full, intricate range of the human condition. We shouldn't degenerate back into a position where people are silenced and suppressed because they are simply from the wrong place. Edward Said, in his defense of Rushdie against the odious fatwa of Khomeini, said that the cause of defending Rushdie was like taking up an intifada of the imagination. And I propose that it is this intifada that needs to be carried up again until victory.